You guys were super passionate about my beauty trends I want to dye video, so here are beauty trends that I want to dye even more. One of the things that always drives me nuts and makes me feel like it's detracting from someone's natural beauty is big false eyelashes. And before you say anything, I'm not alone in this. Keep in mind, this is a mostly unserious video, and we all have different trends that we want to see disappear, but this is just my own personal subjective. But you guys really backed me up on this one, so don't shoot the messenger. I was actually quite shocked by how many people said they wanted to see false eyelashes disappear once and for all. I thought everybody loved lashes and I was kind of the only person who didn't. And like every beauty trend in this video, there are totally exceptions to the rule. There are some false eyelashes that do look really natural, but 90% of the time when I see someone wearing false eyelashes, they're too long, they're too curly, they're too like packed in and voluminous, they're too dark. They really take away from someone's beauty. I just always find them to be really distracting. So I personally prefer the look of individual lashes. I feel like you can just get so much more control. You can put them exactly where you need them to be, and you can really build them up. If I'm gonna go for false lashes, I am always gonna reach for individual lashes. Just place a little bit in the corner really to accentuate the eyes, make it look a little bit more glam without detracting from your beauty, without making it look like you just got some spider legs flapping in the breeze. And a perfect example of this is Love Island. The women on Love Island are so beautiful. They love makeup, but they always end up having these enormous false lashes, and they're so distracting. They always take away from their beauty. The lashes are always a little wonky. They're like lifting up in the corner of their eyes. They just never look that good. And 9 out of 10 times, if I see someone wearing false lashes, I think that they would look better without them. But you know what I personally think looks worse than false lashes? Lash extensions. Don't get mad at me for this. I know a lot of you really love them, but what I'm saying is most of the time when I've seen someone wearing lash extensions, there's something off about them. And most of the time they're too long and they're too curly. I always notice they're like curled back in a way that just looks very unlike actual lashes, or they're way too thick and they just look, again, very distracting. Now, if you love your false lashes and you love your lash extensions, hell yeah, good for you for finding something that makes you feel confident and beautiful. But for me personally, I just feel like every time I see someone wearing them, I would prefer their look without them. Not to mention the maintenance of lash extensions, like the second you lose one, all hell breaks loose, and then it looks all sparse and weird in your lashes and things just go off. Personally, I think a better option for everybody is a lash lift. That way you get to use your own natural lashes so it still looks like you, it's not as distracting and it's not as super glam, but you look really awake, you just look a little bit more glamorous and put together without actually wearing any makeup. Now, some people just prefer a more glamorous look, or they feel like their lashes are too short to do a lash lift, but most of the time, I feel like people would look better with a lift. In my last video, I expressed concern that body modification like plastic surgery can be great to help boost confidence, but I also fear that it's making everybody look the same. And a perfect example of this is a beauty trend that's really taking over Hollywood right now, and that's veneers. And this is where we have to pause and have a nuanced conversation, which is very difficult online. It's not veneers themselves that are the problem. It's whoever is deciding to make them all look the same, like big bright chiclets on everybody's teeth. There are a lot of people who have really great natural looking veneers, and so I'm not talking about those cases. It does sound a little paradoxical, but I believe that two things can be true at once. And on one hand, I think that people should do what makes them feel happy and confident. However, I have concerns that veneers, or like in my last video, filler, is just causing everyone to look completely homogenous. And what true beauty is to me is uniqueness. When I see someone online who just looks the same as everybody else, you know what I'm talking about, Instagram face. I mean, that's the perfect example of this. But when I see someone like that, my brain never goes to, wow, that's the most beautiful person I've ever seen. When I see someone who looks unlike anyone else, that's the kind of face that stays in my mind. And teeth are just such an important expression of character. They can really change your face. And almost every time I see a celebrity get veneers, I get really sad that they went that route. I mean, look at Miley Cyrus. I really liked Miley Cyrus's teeth before veneers. I think she went a little bit too big, a little bit too bright, and I really liked the way that she looked before. One celebrity I have to give major props to is Madonna. I grew up loving her teeth. I love that she had this gap in the middle. I thought it just made her so cute. She made her look really beautiful. And I love that she never got veneers. I love that she never fixed her teeth. She even said in a recent interview that she's been wearing grills now because she has such ugly teeth. Let's look at Georgia May Jagger. What's the feature that you think stands out about her? To me, it's instantly her teeth. They just make her look so effortless and cool and unique. And I love that she hasn't touched them. And obviously all of these celebs are absolutely beautiful no matter what. But I just think that our obsession with looking the same and achieving perfection is really doing everybody a disservice. And it's not that veneers veneers look bad at all. I mean, they make a person look picture perfect, having these big, bright, straight, perfectly aligned teeth. It totally gives you that picture perfect kind of look. But so many people end up having the exact same smile, and I find that really boring and frankly, really forgettable. One celebrity who did veneers brilliantly is Kirsten Dunst. I'm totally obsessed with her. I love everything about Kirsten Dunst. And growing up, I loved her snaggletooth. I loved her teeth. They were on the smaller size, and I just thought it added to her cuteness and her charm. Now take a look at her veneers, and you can see that they kept the same kind of shape and size, and they still made it look like her teeth, just a little bit perfected. I really appreciate that whoever did her veneers really looked at her as a whole person and said, okay, I want to keep the part of Kirsten Dunst that makes her so special and unique and stand out, but I want to just make her look a little bit more camera ready. So again, it's not veneers themselves that are the problem. It's that monotonous size, shape, and color that so many people are getting, especially in Hollywood, and it really just highlights our sad obsession with looking the same to achieve perfection. Another beauty trend that I just want to is face smoothing filters. I am so annoyed by how good and how natural and believable face smoothing filters have gotten on TikTok in particular. You can't even tell when someone's wearing a face smoothing filter, and I didn't even realize that that was even a thing until I saw a particular Instagram account. Now, I thought about categorizing this as Photoshop, but Photoshop is a great tool and you can adjust so many things like the lighting, saturation, shadows, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So my primary issue is really face smoothing filters on social media that are totally undetectable. One day I was scrolling through Instagram and I came across Lizzie Turner. She does a lot of split face comparisons showing real skin versus, you know, a face smoothing filter. And I was shocked that the face smoothing filter was completely undetectable. I never in a million years would have been able to tell that she had any kind of technology that was automatically smoothing her skin texture. It looked so real. I just always assumed that a face smoothing filter would look as kind of obvious and detectable as like the Paris filter. But the technology is getting so good that you could have a bunch of angry red breakouts and you could be wearing no makeup and you could apply a filter that smooths your skin, evens your tone, and applies natural makeup, and you would never even know that that person wasn't wearing real makeup. And I never even realized that some of the Instagram accounts I was following were wearing these face smoothing filters until I saw Lizzie Turner's Instagram. Obviously, this is really harmful to young people, all generations really, but especially young girls. But older women are not exempt from this experience either. Catherine Summers makes an argument in her blog post that older women are just as susceptible to this damage of face smoothing filters as young girls. So she was talking about how she started scrolling through different filters and seeing what her face looked like. And she wrote, "It did not take long for me to look at the filtered ones and start thinking, oh, that one's nice, and forgetting what I actually looked like. By the time I got around to looking at the original, I was somewhat horrified. This took a grand total of 12 minutes for me to go from, yep, I look nice unfiltered, to, oh God, I don't look anywhere near as nice as I thought, when looking at the same photo just 12 minutes apart." She writes, "Being an older woman, I want to see older women in blogs. I want to see them on the internet, in traditional media, and on social media. The feeling of why isn't that me becomes even stronger and more significant." Filters can also distort our perception of features beyond smooth skin and even tone. Catherine Summers writes again, "Should I get lip injections? Is a question that runs through my mind almost every time I open Instagram." And I fully relate with her. Anytime I open Instagram, anytime I'm on YouTube, I compare myself to other content creators and I look at the content that they're putting out and I see all these close-ups of these beautiful lip application shots and I just think to myself, oh my God, I have no lips to work with. Like my content can just never be as good as theirs because my lips aren't as big and they aren't as smooth. And it goes much deeper than just superficial dissatisfaction with ourselves. P. Samadi, an associate psychology professor at Hope International University in California, says, "There's a well-established link between social media usage and psychological concerns. Instagram has been tied to anxiety and depressive symptoms, but also to concerns such as anxiety related to physical appearance, increased body dissatisfaction, and lower self-esteem. And now that we're spending more minutes on these platforms, we can assume these concerns have not only remained, but increased." And like Dr. Amati says in the article, it can be more harmless at first, with just a little tweaks here and there, but it can actually lead to some pretty obsessive compulsive disorders. Dr. Amati says, "These alterations divorce you from reality. Nobody glows, sparkles, and has perfect abs 24/7 in real life. The always documenting culture we exist in already sets hard to reach beauty standards. And as this digital lens becomes our permanent reality, the way we see ourselves is massively shifting. A widening gap between one's digitally enhanced ideal self and one's actual self creates a dysphoria. The chances of developing mental concerns and disorders like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and OCD-related problems, including body dysmorphic disorder, also increase. It's a slippery slope." I've actually had a couple friends have to delete Instagram and TikTok entirely from their phones because it was changing the way that they viewed themselves. Like Dr. Amati said, it's a really slippery slope. Now, on the topic of body modification, but in a much more harmless way, another beauty trend that I just wanna is lip plumpers. I'm so over these. Is anybody with me on this? I am so sick of lip plumpers. I mean, how many lip plumpers do you have to own to justify the amount that are getting constantly released on the market? As we all know, the effects are just temporary. So if you're not familiar with a lip plumper, the idea is that they add an ingredient that irritates the skin, and that irritation causes blood flow at the surface of the lips, and that makes them appear a little bit more plump. You can use menthol to irritate the lips in a cooling way. You can use cinnamon or different peppers in like a hot, spicy way to irritate and plump the lips. And I'm not gonna lie, the effect is nice. It looks real. Like, it looks like you just got your lips done. However, I cannot wear them. They're super irritating and drying on my lips, because the whole point is that you're causing irritation. And for me, on my really sensitive skin, when I'm irritating my lips over and over again, that is just gonna do long-term damage. And that is just making my lips feel dry. It is doing exactly the opposite of what I want them to do, giving me a temporary effect, but more long-term damage is really not what I'm going for. And I know some people don't have that experience. A lot of people use lip plumpers and absolutely love them because they don't feel that irritation and they don't get that dryness that I experience. But personally, I hate it. And don't get me wrong, I'm like a moth to a flame. Anytime I hear the word plumping in the marketing for a product, my spidey senses are tingling. But I like plumping in the way that hyaluronic acid or hydration plumps fine lines in the skin. You know, I really want more skincare ingredients that are providing some skincare benefits to help my skin look a little bit more plump over time. Or I really love lip products that have that thicker texture and a glass-like shine that just smooths over the appearance of lips. That to me could also be plumping in a marketing sense. So think the Amicole lip oils, the Naturium Phyto Glow lip balm, the Hourglass Phantom Volumizing Balms, and the Nature Republic Honey Melting Lips. Those are the 4 products that I've noticed have the most glass-like smoothing shine, but a tingly, spicy, cooling, or irritating product is just not what I want on my lips. And frankly, I think so many amazing lip formulas have been ruined by the inclusion of those ingredients. I want to talk about pH adjusting makeup. Why? Who wants this? It always looks the same. It always looks like a translucent, bright fuchsia pink flush, whether it's a blush or a lip product. And I just don't understand it, because brands are always marketing it as it adjusts to your pH level. But that actually never happens, and there's a specific reason for it. So one of my favorite cosmetic chemists, his name's Javon Ford. You should totally follow him on Instagram and TikTok. His content is incredible. And he said in a Pop Sugar article, pH makeup uses a class of colors called bromo acid dyes that basically function like pH indicators or litmus paper. According to Ford, the specific class of colors used in a lot of pH makeup products today tends to be reds number 21, 27, or 28. And that's also the reason why these products tend to provide the same shade across skin tones. Many brands are only using red 27, which always shifts to pink. Now, my problem isn't with the products themselves, it's with the marketing. Anytime I come across pH adjusting makeup, the most common ingredient I see is red 27. And they're marketing it as this beautiful, natural, lit from within flush that changes according to your pH level. But all of these brands know that red 27 looks the same on everyone, and it does not change according to your pH. So my issue is really with the lack of transparency surrounding these ingredients and the way that they're marketed as adjusting to your pH, because that's just not the reality of what they do. I wouldn't be upset if a brand just said, I don't know, I'm not sure how they could market it, but you know, if they were just honest about red 27, saying that this creates a beautiful, bright pink, translucent flush on the skin, like I would not have an issue with that. But by marketing it as pH adjusting, it's the quickest way for me to turn me off from your product. And to be honest, I think it's overrated anyways. I have never once fallen in love with a pH adjusting product because it always flushes this very unnatural, bright shade of fuchsia pink, and I just don't really feel like it's something I reach for that often. I have yet to see a pH adjusting product that really impresses me, and just don't like the marketing. The next beauty trend that seriously needs to die right now is the trend of buccal fat removal. And again, let's put our nuanced thinking caps on here. I am not saying that all buccal fat removal should stop. I'm not saying that nobody is a candidate for it. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's the trend of buccal fat removal that's a problem. It's the trend that's making people think that they have to have these sharp, super cut, gaunt cheeks, and that is causing what I think is body dysmorphia in a lot of celebrities. And this is not an issue with the actual procedure, because there are people who are great candidates for it, especially if you have a fuller face and just no matter what you do, you cannot seem to get some structure. Totally makes sense. It's the trend that's an issue, because much like the filler section of my video where people completely missed the point of what I was trying to communicate, buccal fat removal is permanent. So if you have buccal fat removal surgery, you can't get that back one day. It's an irreversible procedure. So when I'm seeing all of these celebrities getting what looks like like buccal fat removal, obviously this is all alleged, but it's pretty obvious if they're all of a sudden super chiseled and they haven't had like a bunch of weight loss. You know, if they're having this irreversible procedure, what's gonna happen in 10 or 20 years or even less down the line where they realize that that procedure is really aging them and they want their faces to look a little bit more filled out again? It's just shocking to me how this procedure is aging people so much in a world where Hollywood is obsessed with looking young. So much like the filler section of my last video where I basically said, you know, people should do what they want to feel confident, but I'm just worried that because filler is such a trend, it's warping all of our minds into thinking that we need it. And that's the issue that I have. It's not the filler itself that I have a problem with. It's the trend. That really went over a lot of people's heads and they just thought I was like attacking anyone who used filler. And that's not the case. It's the same thing with buccal fat removal. This trend is over time going to warp our brains into thinking we need to have even more cut, chiseled, slim faces than society already thinks we need to have. Because one thing we know about trends is that they come and go. So right now, the look that's popular might be these like super gaunt faces with big plump lips, but in a few years, the opposite might be trending. And then what happens if you've had this irreversible procedure? There are a ton of examples online of really good buccal fat removal surgeries. So if you just do buccal fat before and after, you'll see a lot of pictures for plastic surgeons who just helped people get a little bit more structure. There are certain cases where it does look good. But these celebrities that are making the procedure a trend to have very gaunt, angular faces, I think are doing damage to a lot of people who are gonna want that super snatched look and then realize one day that they made a mistake and it's irreversible. Now this next one, I don't know if it's a trend, but I don't care because I hate it with a burning passion in my soul, and it's artificial arm swatches. I don't understand how we are in 2024 and brands are still putting out these distorted images where they just slapped on a little color swatch that looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint and they expect us to think that that's an accurate representation of the color of their product. It's just lazy marketing and I don't understand it because I feel like if they just shot some swatches on an iPhone in different lighting, they would save a lot of returns on their products, which would also cut down on waste. I know from experience that it's very easy and very cheap to just do a bunch of arm swatches and go shoot them outside in direct lighting, outside in indirect lighting, and then inside in artificial lighting. And that is gonna get you 3 representations of the color. That's gonna be very helpful for the consumer. Wouldn't it be better if brands did arm swatches that way? Because certainly it would cut down on the amount of returns that people are making when the color doesn't match the expectations. And what I've noticed is that the luxury beauty brands are the ones that are the worst offenders. Armani, Gucci, YSL, and Charlotte Tilbury always just kill me with their artificial swatches. It's a joke. I laugh every time I go to Sephora and I look at the photos on the left. And it just makes me irrationally irritated because I want to know what the damn color looks like. I don't want to know what the computer version of that color is. It's not helpful. I don't know what needs to be invented or what problems need to be solved to get brands to modernize and innovate in that space. But I think we'd all be better for it. The next beauty trend that I want to dye is probably one that I'm alone in, and it's skin tints. I'm not a big fan of skin tints because I feel like they're all the same. And don't get mad at me. I know everybody and their mother loves skin tints, so don't get all angry at me. But this is just a subjective video. This is my personal opinion, so you're allowed to have yours too. And it's really not that deep, but I have EDS, and EDS causes a lot of issues with my skin barrier and acne. So my skin always has so much redness. I always have blemishes that I have to cover, and a skin tint is just not enough coverage for me. But my issue with a skin tint is that they're all so similar, and you can just make your own skin tint by customizing your foundation. So that's why I always talk about the fact that you really only need one like satin natural finish medium coverage foundation or full coverage foundation, and you can customize from there. You can make a skin tint by just mixing that in with a little bit of moisturizer, or you can mix it in with a glowy primer or a mattifying primer. You can mix it in with, you know, some bronzing drops. I know people are going to disagree with me on this one, but I just feel like when you've tried one skin tint, you've tried them all, and we certainly don't need to see more and more skin tints constantly launching. And the last beauty trend that needs to die is greenwashing. So greenwashing is also sometimes called green sheen, and it's a form of advertising or marketing spin that deceptively uses green PR and green marketing to persuade the public that an organization's products, goals, or policies are environmentally friendly. It can range from misleading labels claiming the use of sustainable materials to exorbitant media campaigns touting the eco-friendliness of oil companies. In other words, it's a sales tactic, and it's a really shitty one. Greenwashing began in the 1960s when hotels asked guests to reuse their towels to save the environment, when the primary motivation was actually for the hotels to reduce their laundry costs. The following decades are filled with companies rebranding, renaming, and repackaging repackaging their products and services to appear more environmentally friendly without actually making any substantive beneficial changes. And it's too easy to deceive consumers since the end result of using a product may not be as environmentally positive as claimed. Calling a trash bag recyclable may be accurate on the surface, but since trash bags are unlikely to ever get separated and reused before they end up in landfills, the claim is deceptive. I thought this part was really interesting. So Melanie Rudd wrote in an article for Real Simple that some brands will even put flowers or herbs on their packaging, either on the outer packaging or on the actual product itself, or they'll even create a name of the entire brand that signifies or communicates to the consumer that there's something natural or sustainable or eco-friendly in there, when in many cases it actually doesn't, and they're doing this because it sells. So the US skincare and beauty industry alone is worth about $100 billion, and there is very little regulation. In addition to the fact that there are no legal or even standard definitions of the terms natural, green, clean, non-toxic, naturally derived, renewable, sustainable, synthetic, and more. So a brand can throw one of those terms on their labels and face zero consequences. So there's an entirely separate, very, very long conversation also about greenwashing in terms of packaging, but this video would get too long, so I'm going to save that for another time. But a few quick examples of greenwashing in product packaging are L'Oreal and Head & Shoulders. They claimed that a couple of their products were sustainable and 100% recycled, but that didn't account for the virgin, unrecycled plastic that their caps were made from. That being said, I've noticed a huge shift in the beauty industry, and I'm sure that you guys have noticed it as well. I think consumers are getting a lot smarter. I think consumers are getting more curious. And I think because so many brands have misled us along the way, consumers don't trust brands automatically like they used to. Clean beauty was huge in 2019 and 2020. That's when I definitely saw it talked about the most online. I don't think clean beauty in and of itself is a problem, but I have seen a massive drop in influencers who talk about clean beauty or use that kind of language because they know that it can be very misleading. British Beauty Council CEO Millie Kendall said, "The term clean beauty has become quite dangerous. It's used to sell more products, and these buzzwords are losing traction in the UK as British consumers wise up to their shortcomings." And she concluded by saying the only way out of this is transparency. So I do think that consumers are getting more curious. They're more comfortable kind of calling brands out online for their misleading practices. And I'm hoping that greenwashing becomes a little bit less of an issue as brands realize they need to be more transparent to increase the trust that their consumers have for them. I'll link my first Beauty Trends I Want to Dive video in a pinned comment below, and I'll also put it on the screen so you can keep watching. And after you've watched those, let me know in the comments what beauty trends do you want to see die that just won't go away. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're all having a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.